Greetings, everyone. Happy Monday, September 23rd, here on the Wolverine.com. Anthony Broom here with Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey. And it's a Victory Monday. We love doing these shows. We've had a lot of them over the past 3 years. And hey, 3 and 4 weeks now, Michigan grabs a 27-24 win over USC on Saturday. We will clean up some of the takeaways from that. Sherrone Moore also held his Monday press conference today. We'll go through, we'll recap some of that. Some other narrative things to take away from Monday media sessions. And then, as we do every week, we will take your questions at the end of the show. But, fellas, welcome back in. One of us here, to start off by giving someone flowers, one of the three of us picked a win on Saturday. It's Clayton Safey. It's also his third staff pick win in 4 weeks. So, want to open up by, we'll give him the floor first because he's hot right now. He's in fuego.
Well, just a piece of advice to you guys. If you want to get a little bit better at staff picks, just work a little bit harder at it. And whatever you do, piece of advice for me, don't get the big head. Whatever I do, that's
1%
a
better
trap.
every day.
That's a deep, dark, lonely trap. So I'm not getting the big head. I'm on to Minnesota.
1% better every day.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, because it could sneak up on you and you could predict a 52-3 win over Arkansas State or something and just look like a fool, right? If you get a big head.
Pick a loss. You could pick a loss to USC. Something
exactly. So I'll say this. I'm still not quite sure. I went back and watched that game, how they won that. And here's how they won it. They got an unbelievable carry from Mullings down the stretch. Otherwise, you're looking at 2 minutes to go and you're at the 45-yard line. I don't think they win that football game. I really don't. I don't think they have enough in the passing attack with Alex Orji. And in fact, if there were 2 minutes to go and they started at their own 15 or 20, where did they start that drive? About the 25-yard line, I guess?
The final drive?
Yeah.
They're on 11.
Oh, shit. Okay, well, there you go. I'm sorry. They're on 11. I'm getting older. But if there's 2 minutes to go and you need 89 yards to go and you go with Alex Orji at that point, I would question – should you have brought in Davis Warren, the better passer, clearly the better passer, because they wouldn't let Alex Orji throw downfield, and B, I don't think he can. And I think we've kind of seen that at this point. So regardless, it is a win, guys, and you take it. They got to do some things better, especially offensively. The blueprint's out, right? You can not just line up and run the ball on everybody and hope to have success. There are going to be better defenses and better defensive coordinators preparing for that now. So somehow they've got to incorporate some semblance of a passing game. But good win. I'll take it 10 times out of 10.
If I had told you this time last week that Michigan was going to come out of this weekend with a victory over USC, you'd have thought, all right, all boats sailing in the same direction. The fan base is energized. The team is on the right track. And it's another game where it's kind of like an ink blot test. I think you kind of see what you wanted to see out of it. And I don't know how good USC is. I still don't know that I know how good Michigan is. I don't know if this is a game, like a rally the troops type of game, like the Washington game was in 2021, or if it's, I'm going the way other end of the spectrum here. Is it like the Wisconsin game back in 2008? I have no idea. And I think we have a lot of questions coming out of it still, but in the here and now, I said this on Saturday. I wrote it on Sunday. When you play these big games, to me, it's pass fail. Did you win? Did you not? And guess what? It was almost entirely Mullings' heroics. That last run, and make no mistake about it. We'll talk about the dynamic between him and Donovan Edwards. But at one point, Edwards was out carrying him 14-8 in that game. The fumble happens, and Kalel touches the ball the rest of the way. And push comes to shove. You need to show how tough you are. You were able to score from the 1 yard line. Mind you, it's a lot more real than Ohio State's win at Notre Dame was last year when they scored from the 1 yard line with 10 defenders on the field. That's a full front, full team that USC fielded out there. So we'll get into all of that. Again, you'll take the big win. Who knows what it means moving forward? We'll talk about all of that stuff, of course. But before we get into it, we are, of course, brought to you tonight by our friends over at homefieldapparel.com. Win like that, win Saturday. Hey, Stripe Out Saturday. Looked amazing. Did see some home field gear in the streets, saw it in the crowd, the maize gear, the blue gear. It all looked amazing. And who knows what the theme games will look like moving forward and what they'll ask fans to do. But plenty of great things over at homefieldapparel.com. As weather's cooling down a bit, you're going to have to break out the crew neck soon. The joggers, the coaches' jackets, what have you. They have it all there. Long sleeve t-shirts, short sleeve t-shirts. Home Field Apparel has something for you. Use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order, and upgrade that closet, upgrade the wardrobe. They have a lot of great stuff over there, and nothing but good things to say about our friends at Home Field. So use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order today over at homefieldapparel.com. So before we talk, and actually we have a super chat here from GoBlue982 for $10. We'll take that first, of course. It says, a great cinder block chucking fight. Can't say what CB's thoughts on the stripe out. I wanted one last year, but CB objected as a Michigan traditionalist. So right out of the gates. Speaking of
really? Did I object to that? I don't care what they do in the stands, what they wear. They could wear pink as long as they win, So I guess maybe my opinion has changed from last year. Go Blue 982. I thought it looked pretty cool, with the exception there was quite a bit of red in some of those blue sections, and the USC fans traveled well. You know what I loved about it though was that the USC fans were treated extremely well. And they said that to a person, from what we understand. And, you can go to some Big Ten stadiums. I won't mention them. One of them's in Columbus, where you're going to be treated like dirt. And Texas fans said the same. And they said the same about Ohio State. They said the same about Michigan. So that they loved their experience in Ann Arbor. So after having a not so great experience in Columbus. But I like to hear that, because I think there's a lot of respect for USC from the Michigan fan base, and they were treated that way. So, but I thought it looked really cool. At first, it didn't look like it was going to, and then it filled in, and I thought it was pretty cool.
You just knew the Michigan fans were going to step up in the first ever stripe out, so that was sweet. And then think of this, though. Yeah, there was some red at the Big House. There was a lot of burnt orange at the Big House, too, but there's going to be a lot of maize and blue in Washington. There's going to be a lot of maize and blue next year in the Coliseum. So kind of these first couple of years of these new conferences or expanded conferences, a lot of road fans are going to travel for these marquee matchups. So it's fun for everybody, and Michigan's got alumni everywhere, so Michigan's going to benefit, from it more than most people. Remember the Maryland game last year? I mean, it was like Big House East. So they took over and really took over all those venues. So Michigan fans can't really complain if the other ones want to come in and come to the Big House.
Yeah, and that's one thing too about the new Big Ten, the new college football. We're seeing a lot more of these games that are, I think, kind of bucket list games for a lot of people. I mean, I don't want to say we take it for granted, but for me, being in that building 6, 7, 8 times a year for the past decade or so, like, you do kind of take it for granted to a certain extent. But Texas fans, that's a trip they've been looking forward to for a long time. USC fans, same deal. Oregon fans later on this year will feel that way as well. So yeah, it's going to be cool. And like you said, it's Michigan fans will return the favor when it's time to do so, because that's just how that fan base travels. So the biggest question coming out of this game, and it's what's on the thumbnail for the show, it's what's on everyone's mind. Sherrone Moore was asked about it. Alex Orji himself was asked about it. 7 passes or 7 completions for in 12 attempts, 32 yards. You run the ball 46 times in a game. Is it sustainable? And right now, I think it's impossible to say, because, when you look back at the Washington game in 2021, I remember one of the biggest takeaways out of that was, yeah, I mean, it was nice to see the run game, but that's not what it's going to, you can't play like that when it's time to beat Ohio State. And same deal with the Penn State game last year. I don't know what this looks like moving forward, because I think what you have at quarterback is so much less talented than what you've had in the past, just in terms of throwing the football, the threat of throwing the football. I've said this. I think the Alex Orji experiment can be as successful as they are willing to get weird with it. And at times we saw that on Saturday. Now, third quarter, things kind of fall off. You have to kind of find it late on that last drive. But where does this offense go from here, I think, is the question of the night. And I'd love to get your guys' take on it.
That's a great question. And if you want to be Iowa, and you're going to be able to compete with the teams on the schedule, and teams like Minnesota and Michigan State and maybe Indiana and Illinois, those are much improved football teams. You're not going to beat Oregon or Ohio State, in my opinion, like this. You have to have some threat of a pass, or you're going to get eaten alive. At least a threat of a pass, right? And that was one thing that we saw from from JJ McCarthy, for example, at Penn State. Everybody talks about the 32 runs in a row, but there were a couple times they caught them with their ears pinned back on third down, trying to get to the quarterback, and they hit them with a quick little running play and sprung them because they were too aggressive. I don't think they're going to be overly aggressive on third down and long against this Michigan line, and frankly, I don't think they have to be because pass protection has just not been good enough, whether it's been Davis Warren or whether it's been Alex Orji. I will say, I'll go so far as to say that if pass protection had been better, Davis Warren might still have been in there. He wouldn't. The interceptions were totally on him, no matter what anybody else says. Donovan Edwards said, "Hey, it was my missed protection that caused him to throw that one against the first one against the pick six against Arkansas State or whatever it was." And he said, and no, you just can't make that throw. So it was completely on Davis Warren, but that kid was running for his life. Evan Link has not been getting the job done at right tackle, and the protection has been leaky. I asked Sherrone Moore today what he thought about Pro Football Focus and their rankings and their ratings, and he laughed. He said, "I don't have time to look at that." And you could kind of sense what he thought about it, and that maybe they're grading out a little bit better on their system. But when it comes to tackles, as somebody on the message board said today, it's pretty clear. You either get beat or you don't, right? And they're getting beat way too much. So to me, this is going to be everybody's like, "Oh, they got to do more RPOs and they got to do this and they got to do that." I think they'd be doing that, guys, if they could. And if they had faith that it would work. So something's not there, and they are extremely, extremely limited with Alex Orji under center. They cannot win 10 games playing like this, period.
Yeah, just great and glorious victory, on Saturday. And this program just continues to make plays when they have to, right? In these big, tight games, big moments, Khalil Mullings with the run. But it kind of played out exactly how they needed it to for them to win this game too. Like, you can't really play this style of football if you don't get up early 14-0 like they did, and then be able to kind of cling to your lead. You get a defensive score from Will Johnson, which was an incredible play as well, but the offense didn't really do anything. Actually didn't do anything in the second half until Khalil broke that 63-yard run to set them up. It was the first down of the second half. So they need to get more out of the passing game, but they bought themselves some time by getting a marquee victory over the number 11 team in the country, to allow Alex Orji to develop here in the passing game, to get healthier as well with Colston Loveland. I think he would be a huge piece, and this game could have looked a little bit differently if he was in there. We'll see what Marlon Klein's status is coming out of getting hurt at the end of last week's game as well. But it's just huge to get this one, to inject some confidence in the entire team, offense, defense, special teams. By the way, part of that script too was Tommy Doman doing an incredible job in the field position game, getting them to start out with some really long fields after having played some shaky football the first 3 weeks outside of his kickoffs. So that was big as well, but they're going to need to improve the offense, here. Maybe you can beat Minnesota like that. You open up as a double-digit favorite there, probably be a favorite at Washington. But then the end of the month, next month, it's going to get tougher. So, but the thing is, they do have some time here, and Alex Orji got through his first start without having to do a whole lot with his arm and still got the win. So if he can improve from here, or if they have to make a change at some point too, then they may have to. But certainly they're going to have to be better from the quarterback position.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring this comment up from Jamion Small. Jamion Small says he still has a Davis Warren fetish. Jamion, we don't judge here. You can have fetishes on anybody or anything, anytime. So you keep sticking to your guns there, buddy. And I think this quarterback competition is ongoing. It's clear, though, that Alex Orji deserved his shot. And you can't turn the ball over six times. They can make as many excuses for them as they want to. 2 of the interceptions probably weren't on him. But Jamion, you know what? We might even send you a Davis Warren jersey, knowing that you have a fetish for him.
Fair enough. I think, Clayton, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Michigan's path to win on Saturday was going to be playing complementary football. And it's what we hadn't seen the first few weeks. I mean, they won the field position battle for the most part. Lest we forget, I mean, everyone's talking about Khalil Mullings' heroics. You had 2 of your better players, Donovan Edwards, Kenneth Grant, fumble the football away to the other team. To win, I mean, I come out of this week feeling a lot better about the culture and this team's, you didn't see him pack it in. You didn't see him, they played hard and they have their limitations and they're still working through a lot of things. But the fact that that was a 4-quarter football fight that ends with you punching the football in on 4th and 1 for the game, and I'd almost argue for the season, because who knows where this thing goes if you choke away that game on Saturday. I learned a lot about this group this week, just in terms of I think they're gonna keep playing hard. The defense was much more physical, obviously up front, sort of hammering home, being the dominant force that we thought that they could be. So, in terms of sustainability, yeah, it obviously has to get better. You're not going to win many games. And I say this, but Michigan is 6-0 the last 6 times that it's thrown for less than 100 yards in a game. And that's the most Jim Harbaugh Michigan stat that there could possibly be right now. But yeah, man, listen, these guys need to get better. And it's, I see comments about needing to throw the ball better, needing to get Donovan Edwards more involved in the passing game. It's like the path to doing that right now, it seems just like every 4, 5, 6 yards that they get feels like pulling teeth at the moment outside of the big runs. I mean, this team can't pass protect right now. You have a quarterback who is limited throwing the football versus a guy who can't take care of the football. I just think it's hard to do the things that a lot of Michigan, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. And hopefully, hopefully he gets better and they get more comfortable asking him to do more things. The thing is that maybe they've, worked on RPOs and maybe he makes bad decisions when he's running it in practice. Don't you think they would be doing more if they thought he could do more, especially in a game like USC, when you've gone 3 and out like 6 or 7 times in a row? You had 7 yards in the second half and no first downs for 24 freaking minutes. So, you know what? To me, and now the blueprint's out there. They made adjustments in the second half. The blueprint is out there. So to sit there and think that you're going to win that way against better teams on the schedule, even some of the teams like Michigan State that have improved, that are well coached. If you saw them play Boston College, their defense is playing a lot better than I thought they would. I'll be honest. Going to Illinois is going to be tough to win if you have an offense like that. So somebody here asked, what do they think? First of all, Jack Tuttle. He's not going to be an option, in my opinion. I asked Sherrone Moore today. He said the snaps in practice are going to be like 70-30, 60-40 for Sherrone Moore, or not Sherrone Moore, for Alex Orji compared to Davis Warren. And then he said, Warren is still studying. If they need a passer, again, then if they get down by 2 scores, I think it's pretty clear. They were still, as Anthony said, or somebody said on the board, they were still running the ball up the gut with two minutes to go. And from the 45-yard line, the 40-yard line, before Kalel Mullings broke his runner, the 30-yard line. And it's unsustainable. That's not going to happen very often. It took one huge run for them to win this game. It would be a much different narrative that we would be discussing today had they somehow not gotten that 4th and 2. And if Kalel Mullings had not broken that 63-yard run. So there's a lot still to be determined. I agree with you 100% too, Anthony. I don't know how good USC is. I don't know how good Michigan is, but I do know that Michigan's got great players on defense, and they played with much more fire on Saturday. If they play with that like that, then that defense can win them some games.
Yeah, and with the offense too, the receivers and the coaching staff have to figure out a way to get them open. You would think with the amount of times Michigan's running the football that, hey, even a pass would be kind of catching the opponent off guard a little bit. But, just doesn't feel like they have a super high level of talent in the receiving core outside of Colston Loveland. I do like what I've seen from Marlon Klein, but those are tight ends. You kind of need some wideouts to do some things. Samaj Morgan got some yards on some of those screens. I mean, Fred Moore had the crossing route that, looked like it could have gotten a little bit more had he gotten free. And then really the Marlon Klein 10-yard pickup was absolutely massive, leading to the 3rd and short for Kalel to then run for 63. But, they need to get guys open in some better spots. They need to be able to protect if you want to have time to get guys open. So it's not just all on Alex Orji, but on the defense, I mean, what an incredible performance by the defensive line. I mean, that was the vision that we all had coming into the season of what this D-line was going to look like. They had been a little quieter. Teams are getting the ball out pretty quickly in the first couple of weeks, especially Arkansas State last week. They felt like they wanted more production. and they got it against, USC had to make the left tackle change in the middle of the game, looking for answers left and right. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, how can you contain both of those guys? And then number 0, Josiah Stewart, was all over the field. 8 pressures, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, a pass breakup. He was incredible. And this D-line helped out the back end. Obviously, Will Johnson made the pick 6, which was outstanding. But that's how it has to look, too, for this defense going forward. And they stepped up in the biggest game to date. So, kudos to them.
Let me ask you guys a question while we're here. If it's 13-3, say, heading into the fourth quarter, or 13-6, Michigan's losing, or 16-6, what do you do? Do you stick with Alex Orji? Do you go with Davis Warren?
One score game. I mean, that's not assuming that the football has been protected and taken care of. Like I can't go to that guy with the 6 interceptions on the resume. And, again, they need someone who can throw the football adequately, but I think it's kind of they talk about the 4 Ps when it comes to surrounding a quarterback. It's play calling, playmakers, protection. Maybe it's just the 3 Ps. I don't know. And they haven't had a whole lot of quality, any of that in the passing game. So to me, I mean, it's, and we haven't talked about this yet. I mean, and I think maybe Clayton actually hit on it. No Colston Loveland in this game. Marlon Klein was hurt. So you're already, down from like the 2 top guys at a pretty big safety valve spot.
Klein was out for like 5 plays, but
right. 5 plays.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, we forget, I do think there's a part of them that had Colston Loveland in mind for this game plan on Saturday. Even Sherrone says that they thought he might give it a go, and the doctors decided against it. So I don't know. Like, that's another data point that I'm not sure of. So to me, I mean, right now, Alex Orji is the quarterback until Alex Orji's play loses you a football game, in my opinion. That's, to me, that
even Minnesota.
That's dicey. That's dicey.
Yeah. That's really dicey. Even Minnesota, you can't afford to lose that game. You can't afford to lose any game that's not Oregon or Ohio State at this point. And those are they should all be winnable games, including Washington on the road, a big 24-5 winner over Northwestern. So to me, they've got some tough decisions to make. I'm glad I'm not the coach, because I said in the spring I didn't think they had any options, that they needed to do whatever they could do to go to the portal. I think we're seeing that is absolutely true. And I understand that their hands were tied and they had their backs to the wall in terms of what they could do with the timing. But this quarterback room at Michigan is frankly unacceptable. And that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah.
I would heavily consider going to somebody else in a spot like that, because the turnovers were kind of the downfall of Davis Warren. But if you're down 10 points in the fourth quarter, you got to dial up the risk a little bit anyway, and be able to push the ball downfield a little bit. But it's a hypothetical. What if they're up 21-7 next week? No one's going to be complaining either. So people always like the doom and gloom hypotheticals, but I would definitely think that this is still close. I mean, Davis Warren was the starter the beginning of the year for a reason. He lost the job for a reason. We'll see what Alex Orji does with it. He could run away with it just as easily as Davis Warren could have. But yeah, I would definitely consider in a spot like that making a change. And AB, you make a great point on Colston Loveland, because think of Davis Warren, though. All his production, or at least half of it, was to Colston Loveland. So, it's something that we don't have. We haven't seen Alex Orji run the offense with number 18 out there. Okay. So it's kind of an interesting one going forward, once he comes back.
Yeah, now I see what we're dealing with here. Jamyon says call Al Borges up for how he used Denard Roundtree Gallon scheme. They don't have Denard Roundtree and Gallon. They don't have anything close. And I wouldn't call Al Borges to scheme anything at this point, with all due respect. Al's a good guy, but no. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why, on one hand, you can sit here and go, oh, well, if this is the reality of their quarterback situation, that's what your top 2 options are what we've seen from them, then Jaden Davis can't be much worse. And on one hand, I would listen to that from maybe it's time to put a little more on his plate behind the scenes and maybe see if you get him ready for later in the year. On the same token, the fact that we're still having conversations about wide receivers not being able to get separation and an offensive line that can't pass block. I'm sorry, you can't just plug a true freshman into, again, if this is freshman JJ McCarthy, it's a totally different story. But then again, even he's able to be successful early on in his career because you were dominant up front. You could pass block and run block. So this is your football team right now. And it's kind of this scrappy band of misfits. And we'll see if they can keep the train rolling there. But there's a lot of upward trajectory that needs to take place. I just think Alex Orji is your guy right now until it's clear he isn't. Because I'm sorry, I don't have confidence that in the fourth quarter of a game that Davis Warren can protect the football, because I haven't seen it this year. And even when he's played before that, he's thrown some interceptions. So this is what it is right now. I mean, can't talk about the transfer portal, can't talk about the offseason anymore. This is game 5 this weekend, and they need to be better. Everyone needs to be better. I want to talk about Sherrone's press conference here on Monday for a little bit. Of note, it seems like still not quite clarity at the center position. They liked how both guys played, said that both guys were in there on touchdown drives, but it's getting to be week 5. And I think some of the rotating you probably want to settle on a guy here sooner rather than later, because I just don't think that that's a sustainable model either.
Go ahead, Clay. You can start with this one.
I thought both played well against USC. I mean, Dom with the false start or whatever that clutch snap was, double clutch, wasn't great in a big time spot. So you can't do that. But then, he had some key blocks as well. So yeah, I guess it's kind of worked to this point because they didn't rotate against Texas. So that was all on Jadis, but the rotation doesn't seem like it's necessarily hurt them. It seems like both have done a decent job, at least getting better, I would say. But I think they got bigger issues on that O-line than the center spot.
Yeah, it's called right tackle. So I'm okay right now. I do think that Greg Crippen, they do some things better with him when he's on the field. And they say, well, he didn't grade out quite as well. I don't give a crap. Sometimes you can go too far into the analytics. Sometimes you have to trust your eyes and what you see. And for example, and I'll give you an example of that, Cade McNamara, when people were screaming about Cade McNamara and Jim Harbaugh calls it, he says, look, man, here's the percentage of plays of his that end in points. And that's what matters. And that's what wins football games, right? He's throwing it away, so on and so forth. And I'm sure I'm going to get some hate mail from the JJ stands here going, I'm talking about 2021, but to me, their biggest problem is at right tackle. And I cannot for the life of me fathom how they don't have somebody better over there. With all due respect to this kid, who I think is going to get better and could be a solid right tackle here. You've got guys that have been in the program for a long time, and you talk about development and how you develop players. And you've got Andrew Gentry and Jeff Percy, who are veterans in this program, who should be much better than they are and should be playing, frankly, in my opinion. If you're going to hold guys accountable for their mistakes, including Davis Warren and everybody else, and somebody made a point over here, then you got to hold everybody accountable, because there's just been way too much leakage from that side of the line for my liking, and it's gonna burn them again in some of the big games if they don't fix that.
Yeah, just looking at some of the pass blocking numbers on Pro Football Focus, which again is not the gospel truth, especially not inside the building there. Evan Link has allowed 15 pressures this year. He has a 7.1 pass blocking grade, which is, you have guys that are in like the 40s and 50s, and that's bad. 7.1 is really bad. And he's got a couple of goose eggs in there. Next highest guy with pressures allowed is Miles Hinton with 4. The fact that, and I get it, at times he looks like he could be a mauler in the run game, and he's put some good stuff on film, and really he's just not ready for it right now. I don't know if it's more concerning that he has gotten the full run at right tackle, or that no one really behind him, again, coming into camp, it was a 2-man job or 2-man battle between Andrew Gentry, Jeff Percy, and then we hear it's Evan Link. And we haven't, Gentry's been out as that 6th offensive lineman, but we haven't even gotten a look at what an offensive line with a different right tackle could look like yet. And that's 4 weeks in, that's just, I see 15 pressures. I see 7.1 pass block grade. That's truly awful. That's pretty bad. About as bad as it can get.
Yeah, but flat out. So, at some point, try something different, try something new, or get a back over there or a tight end and help protect, because if it's not working, you got to do something different. So, hopefully, Link continues to improve. I will give him credit for some of the blocks that he threw in the running game. He was out there and got aggressive and was physical, and clearly they think he's the best they have. So, but again, that's not saying a whole lot at this, but that's an indictment on the development a little bit, right? Because I remember in summer when we were asking Sherrone Moore, hey, how many guys do you have that can play on this line? Are you 8, 9, 10 deep? And he goes, yeah, I think we are. We've got guys who can play here. And if that's the best you got, then that's bad. And I am not criticizing Sherrone Moore's offensive lines just yet in terms of, we knew this was going to be tougher guys, but this line should be better than it is, in my opinion. Sherrone Moore earns the benefit of the doubt given the lines that he's had and the way he's coached them the last few years. Now, though, it's time for a young guy in Grant Newsome to earn some money here, because they need to be better, guys, if this offense is going to get better. It doesn't matter who's behind center if that line is not going to protect for them or open some holes for them.
All right, any other thoughts from the Sherrone presser? Again, it seems like sort of hit on this a little bit earlier. Colston Loveland was close to playing Saturday, and Sherrone Moore says he's doing a lot better. Wonder if we'll see him this week. I'm not sure yet. Other than that, that's nothing really stands out here. Oh, I do want to. Can I get on the pulpit for 1 second? Do you
Sure.
mind if I just the Khalil Mullings, Donovan Edwards conversation. One of the biggest things that Sherrone said during his Monday presser is that he thinks that Khalil Mullings has earned the right to be in the conversation to have more carries than Donovan Edwards. And listen, the fumble first of all, fumble Saturday. Yeah, you got to be a little more secure with the football. It's a great play from the defender too. Really heads up play on their part. But listen, there is room for both of these guys in this backfield. And again, just because Khalil is playing better and should get more carries, make no mistake about it, there's still like a level of toxicity and like this people wanting to flat out bench Donovan Edwards, who is, I think he's one of your 2 or 3 best players on offense right now. And a guy that I think we've seen run a lot harder, run a lot smarter this year. Popped another, guess what? Big game. Donovan Edwards pops a long touchdown run. Stop me if you've heard this one before. I think some of the stuff with the fan base and how Donovan Edwards is, I get that what you've seen from Khalil Mullings, you want him to be Blake Horn. You want him to be a guy you hand the ball off to 25, 30 times a game. And when we talk about winning at all costs, if that's what it takes to win a football game, that is 100% what they should do. But Blake Horn was a unicorn. And I think that the best version of this Michigan team features a steady dose of both of those guys still, with, given the performances that we've seen, Mullings still kind of out ahead a little bit. And, you could do, I do think Donovan Edwards needs to be the change of pace that it kind of seems like that they felt that Khalil Mullings should be early in this year. We've gone into, a couple sequences in a row where he doesn't get the football at all. Talked about earlier how he was out carried at one point late in that football game. But I think there's room for both of them. I think that the staff can do some more creative things to get Donovan Edwards the football. But if this team's going to reach its goals at all, and if this team is going to be a ground and pound first football team, Donovan Edwards is going to factor into that. So, and we've talked about this before, where he's always been a guy that kind of needs that volume to get going. So if you're going to throw the ball 12 times a game, yeah, I'm fine with Khalil Mullings getting 20, 22 carries. I still want Donovan Edwards touching the ball 14, 15, 16 times a game, whether it be through the run game, through the passing game, or heck, he might be the team's best pure thrower right now. I don't know, but the idea that they should just kind of toss that guy off to the side is, I don't get it, and I'll never understand it.
No, nobody wants to toss him to the side. What I want them to do, and what Kirk Campbell said in the offseason, was that Alex Orji was one of their best 11 players, so he needed to be on the field, right? Would you say that Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards are 2 of their best offensive players at this point? I would.
Question.
So find a way to use them both at the same time. And it doesn't seem like it should be that hard. I can't say that I want Donovan Edwards to be a third down back for a couple reasons. Number one, his pass blocking this year has been kind of shitty. And he's had 3 times that I've counted as a senior captain where he's gone the wrong way or missed a block that has led to turnovers or negative plays, and that cannot happen from a senior. So not to mention the fumble, right? So he's got to be better, number one. Number two, I don't know that Blake Corum was a unicorn from the standpoint of a lot of carries. I think Kalel Mullings can handle that. We've seen Hassan Haskins do it, right? And by the time you get to the fourth quarter, when you got a guy like Kalel Mullings running through your MF and face, as they like to say, and you're trying to tackle this guy, we saw what happened in the fourth quarter, right? There's times that they didn't want any part of him. And that softens up a defense. And then maybe you bring in Donovan Edwards as a change of pace back. These guys are the defensive linemen, have their hands on their hips and they're breathing hard. And then maybe you create a little bit more room for Donovan Edwards, who needs a little bit more room to really make a big play. And we've seen that. He is not a guy that's going to break tackles the way that Kalel Mullings is. So, but there's got to be a better way here. And Kalel Mullings needs to be on the football field as much as he can withstand it. He has not played a ton of football in his life. So you're not doing this kid a disservice by saying, okay, we need you to carry the ball 25 times a game. I remember not so long ago, Chris Perry carrying 50 times in a game, Mike Hart carrying a ton. And you soften up that defense in the fourth quarter and you're beating the crap out of these guys. If you want to smash, then you got to go with the guy who can smash. And that's why I asked Sherrone Moore after the game on Saturday, at what point is it time now? Has Kalel Mullings earned this? And I frankly think he has. And I do think there's a role for Donovan Edwards. And I do think we know he can catch the ball. He had 10 catches for 150 yards or something like that in his freshman year against Maryland. So start using him that way.
Kalel was unbelievable in this game. And it makes you wonder why he didn't get the first carries. I think you play them both early on, and then, whoever's the hot hand goes from there. It was pretty clear that was Kalel Mullings. And, to their credit, I guess they played him when the game was on the line at the end, especially after the Donovan Edwards fumble. But the most special part about Donovan's game is that if you don't fit the run correctly, and if you're not gap sound, assignment sound, he will make you pay for it. We saw it against Washington. We saw it in this last game. So, talk about a 1-2 punch. I love this 1-2 punch. It's probably best case scenario coming out of what you had with Blake Corum last season. So, Kalel's in the conversation. I was kind of surprised to hear that in the conversation. And clearly, based on the production, he's been the better back. He averaged 9.4 yards a carry. Sherrone said today, I think he averaged 7. No, it was 9.4. And, a lot of that was after contact. He's averaging nearly 6 yards after contact per rush on the season. So he's been outstanding, for a guy who played linebacker most of his college career. It's amazing what he's done.
It is. And again, I'm not out to, I think we can have the conversation about Kalel, and there's a space for Kalel to be that top guy. And he should be at this point. That's what the film says. It's as undeniable as what we've seen on the field, with them needing a quarterback change or getting your best guys on the field. He's this team's best playmaker right now. And this team is in desperate need of playmakers. And if he's the best guy, Donovan Edwards isn't too far behind him. So there's room for all of them. I think that Michigan can use Donovan a little bit better, but make no mistake about it. Both of these guys, I think, need to touch the football a ton. Let's get into questions. Want to start with this one from MGoBlue0307 on the board. He says, 8 games remaining. What is your ceiling and floor for the football team in terms of wins? And we'll start with Chris there.
Wow, that's a tough one, right? And I said, I thought if they got to beat USC, they beat USC. That was a season saver because to me, you got guys that are questioning, at that point, this isn't back in the Lloyd Carr days when, you weren't thinking ahead. Lloyd Carr had a great way of keeping teams together when they got off to a poor start. But we've seen even teams in the Jim Harbaugh era when they had a couple of losses, you had guys mailing it in. And I'm not saying that these guys are going to do that, but you got to at least start thinking about your future. And so I thought USC was a huge one. To me, I see lots of losable games. I see lots of winnable games, right? I think Oregon's a winnable game. I could see them if they get the offense figured out, and that's a big if. I can see them beating Minnesota, going to Washington and winning, going to Illinois and winning, even though it's going to be a tough one. Michigan State, they better beat at home. Although Michigan State, I think, will give them a game. Oregon, I think they can beat them at home. I really do. And at Indiana, it's going to be tougher. Northwestern. So there are a lot of winnable games there. So to me, I'm going to still say I'm going to go 9-3 as the ceiling because they're not going to win all those games. To me, I think the floor could be 7-5, maybe even 6-6 if they don't get the offense figured out, because there are still a lot of games on that schedule. And somebody close to the program told me it is going to be tough for this team to win on the road this year, and that they didn't discount anybody. They didn't discount Illinois or Indiana either. It's going to be really tough for them. And so you got 4 road games that right now look a hell of a lot tougher than they did to start the year.
Yeah, every game is going to be kind of its own unique challenge, unique opportunity in terms of matchup as well. So like all of them will be matchup dependent, right? And these teams are going to, every week is different. Like even Minnesota, you feel like you have a good matchup here being able to run the football against them. But, then PJ Flex talking today about how, hey, we were in position to make all these different tackles against Iowa. We just didn't make some of them. We tackled better earlier in the year. We can do this. We can make our fixes. We'll see what they come out with on Saturday. Michigan's thinking, hey, let's run it again the same way we did. Let's pass a little bit better and let's continue to roll, play great defense, of course, special teams and all that. So every game is going to be its own unique challenge. I don't do ceilings because every time we do a ceiling on a team, you see somebody break through it. Like in 2021, the ceiling for Michigan was 9-3. It was 10-2. They're in the college football playoff. Next thing you know, we're at the Orange Bowl and, they're beating Ohio State as the snow falls in late November. So, I mean, I think this team can win individually every game on the rest of its schedule. Whether the chances or percentages they are, certainly, absolutely. But, to actually string them all together would be really challenging, but they can do it. They could also lose, a bunch of games as well. So that's why they play the games.
That's a great
it's hard
great non-answer, Clayton.
Well, there's no such thing as a ceiling. Like who caps to cap
the ceiling is the roof,
or to say this is the, like they could always do worse than you think. They could always do better than you think.
That's true.
I mean, no one gave him a shot last week.
Right. Well, you did. Yeah.
I choose to look at it in kind of these 4-game pods or so. I'm looking at how do you get ready for November football, which is like Jim Harbaugh said, when the leaves start changing colors and whatnot, that's championship football season. So to me, I mean, Saturday's September 28th. The Michigan State game is almost maybe that first game of November football. But, over these next 4 games, I think you're looking at individually, I think you can win all of them. I think you can get to 7. If you can get to 7-1 by the time Oregon comes to town on November 2nd, I think you're going to be in a really good spot to, hey, decide it on the field. And that's maybe where you're playing for that 9-10 win plateau, maybe even more, depending on if this team gets things rolling. But, this is a sneaky tough spot Saturday too, where you have your first road trip next week. It's a national championship rematch and you're coming off an emotional win last week. They better be ready because I think Minnesota physically is going to be much more ready for the challenge than maybe USC, certainly than USC was early in that game. Was impressed by the fact that USC didn't just completely fold because that's what we've seen from them in the last few years. But yeah, I mean, the floor right now, if I'm just taking it in this little 4-game pod, is I think that there's a chance you can come out of it at 5-3, which probably puts 7-5 on the table, maybe puts 6-6 on the table if you lose 3 out of those last 4. Because Indiana, I mean, man, Kurt Cignetti is going to be a pain in the ass, I think. But you can find a way to get to 7-1. I think you're in really good shape to win 9. I think 9 games is the magic number for this being a good first season for Sherrone Moore. I think 10 games gets you in the college football playoff. That's the magic number for postseason football that matters. So we'll see where it goes from there. But certainly a lot on the line these next few weeks. You just get through these next 2, you get to the bye, you get to take a deep breath a little bit, and you go from there. So a yellow shirt guy with a $9.99 super chat says, I know Doug Skeen was watching the game from his yacht, but was he excited watching the offensive line make progress and delivering some chicken sandwiches at the end of the game?
He was. At the same time, he said there's still a lot to clean up. They were a little better. He has concerns about right tackle, like we all do, right? And but there was more to like, and they were getting to the second level at times, and their combo blocks were a little bit better. So there's still a long way to go, fellas. Really, Giovanni El Hadi needs to be playing better. Miles Hinton, I thought had a pretty good game from what I saw. And but there's still a lot of room for improvement.
Oh, going to take this one from Dan Gold's on the board. It says, who hangs 100 first? Ryan Day points against Michigan or Alex Orji passing yards in a season?
Ouch. How dare you? Yeah. You know what? I want to see him complete some downfield passes. I want to see him take some shots. Okay. You got to see what you have at some point. If it just seems like they are too frightened. And we saw some bad throws from him downfield on Saturday, flat out, that weren't close. At the same time, how do you get better if you don't practice them, right? So if you go up in this game, if you go behind, get behind, then you're gonna have some other decisions to make. But they need to do some things and do a better job scheming guys open for him too. Let's be honest. I am not impressed with the wide receivers at all. At the same time, I've seen teams with worse wide receivers getting a lot more separation and routes for them that where they don't have somebody in their hip pocket. So I think it all comes into play that way. Somebody actually wrote on the board, they said it's got to be short passes or long passes, no intermediate passes. I don't think that's realistic either. But I would think it would do wonders for him if he could just get one downfield, complete one downfield, do a lot for his confidence. If he could have hit, for example, Fred Moore a week earlier, instead of overthrowing him a little bit, that would have been big for him. But when I see a guy in there, I see a guy who's a little bit skittish, and I don't blame him because the protection's been crappy for him too. There was a play on Saturday in which Samaj Morgan was wide open down the seam, it looked like, and he didn't even glance his way. And Samaj was really obviously frustrated about it, and understandably so. But they've got guys closing in on them, whether it's Warren or Orji or whoever, within that close, that much time of snapping the ball. So that's where it starts for me.
I'm going Orji. We all know Ryan Day ain't like that. He ain't like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go to this one from. Sorry, I didn't scroll enough ahead of time. Let's go to this one from Albie on the message board. He says, I've noticed that linebackers Barham and Hausman have not been close yet to last year's dynamic duo of Junior Colson and Michael Barrett in terms of presence and production. What's the concern or plan to get them going, especially Jayshawn Barham?
I'm concerned, right? The first couple of games there, he looked like he hadn't played the position before, which was hugely disappointing given how much they were hyping him up in camp. So, is it a coaching issue? Is it on him just being, in a new environment and just not living up to the billing? I mean, some people said, and it was kind of mean, but they said he looks like a Maryland linebacker out there. And so maybe they have to coach some bad habits out of him, but he was overrunning plays and he needs to be better. He's a great athlete. Now he needs to become a great football player. Hausman, I thought, got better. I think Jimmy Rolder is going to get more playing time. And I think he did last week, if I'm not mistaken. How many snaps did he have, Clay? PFF?
18 maybe, or
okay.
22, something like that.
Yeah, Wink Martindale told me he's a future pro as long as he stays healthy. And, these guys are prone to a little bit of hyperbole, but at the same time, you can see there's some talent there too. So if one guy's not performing, somebody else has got to get in there and do the job. I think Rolder had some good plays on Saturday.
Yeah, and I thought Ernest Hausman played a lot better in this game. But, I mean, I didn't expect them to be Junior Colson and Michael Barrett. I mean, that might have been the best duo I've seen. And, couple that with, the Jesse Minter defense and all the talent they had around them. It was awesome for a couple of years, especially last season when Junior took a big step, I thought. But Hausman was a little bit better. Jayshawn Barham, I mean, tackling is an issue. And a lot of playing middle linebacker it's not being the physical specimen that we heard about in the preseason. A lot of it's between the ears and being able to react and have those good instincts. And I think Jayshawn Barham's still trying to get there. I mean, the missed tackle on really the one big run that USC had by Woody Marks goes for 65 yards. And by the way, credit Jair Hill for running him down. And then they end up, getting the two fumble play and all that. So just a bad break there, but almost saved a touchdown. And did save the touchdown for the moment. But Jayshawn Barham was the reason why he even got out and into the open field. So the middle linebackers have to be a little bit better. But I thought Ernest Hausman tackled really well, even in open field in this last game. And that's a pretty talented, group of receivers and ball carriers USC has.
Take this one from King of the Stallerites, who says, Do you think they beat Ohio with this type of game with some further evolution of the offense / passing by then, or are they too stacked and a lot stronger now? I'll start with this. I think the recipe to beating Ohio State the last few years has come up front for Michigan. If you can control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, you're going to give yourselves a chance to win. Marshall ran the ball a bit on them Saturday. And yeah, again, you're probably not going to beat Ohio State, with a service academy threats worth of passing game. But that's a long ways away. I mean, that's over 2 months away. I think they play in 68 days, I think is the count between now and November 30th. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying. I want to see them beat Minnesota this week. I can't even think about Ohio State because I think they have a lot of things to clean up to win the game this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. The spread's going down. It's crazy. 8.5 points over a Minnesota team that lost at home to North Carolina and got pummeled, frankly, by Iowa at home. So it's pretty low. So they still have a lot to prove. They need to get better. It's like Anthony said. I don't think this is 2008 Wisconsin because this Michigan team has a lot more talent than that one does. At the same time, this team could lose to a team like Minnesota if they turn the ball over, if they don't play well, if they go 3 and out 18 times in a row or something like that, or even 7 or 8 times in a row and let Minnesota hang around. So this is a team that has very little margin for error. And when it comes to Ohio State, if you have the kind of gaffes in protection, or not in protection, but in coverage that you had against USC, they're just going to destroy you. And with that, with their receivers and everything else. So that's down the line. Obviously right now we wouldn't pick them to win, but there have been times that I haven't picked them to win and they showed up and played a great game. And so we'll see, but that's the farthest thing from my mind right now.
Yeah. The style of play right now for me is kind of irrelevant in terms of like, would they beat Ohio? I don't expect them to beat Ohio State in Columbus this season either way. But I think the goal is to continue playing this style, hope that Alex Orji gets better. The passing game evolves a little bit. Receivers get better. The protection gets better. The defense continues to play at a high level and improve as the year goes on, clean up some of those mistakes. And then you take your shot from there. So they'll certainly have a chance, but I don't know that, like, do you think they beat Ohio State with this type of game? I don't think they're going to beat them, but obviously they have a shot to.
Yeah, and again, I mean, let's just look at Saturday right now. I mean, Iowa's able to beat them. Quarterback doesn't turn over the football. They ran for 270 yards. I think you have a chance to do that. Still think you're probably better up front than Iowa is, in my opinion. We'll see what happens, but it's a home game. I think Michigan has what it takes to kind of replicate what Iowa did, especially in its own building. But we'll see. I mean, you got to play these games when you have that type of variance at the quarterback position. I think in all 4 games this year, Michigan's 3-1. I don't think they've had a QBR game over like 44, like in terms of ESPN's metric, which is embarrassingly low. So we'll see. We'll find out. I don't know how sustainable their current course of action is, but can you do it 2 weeks in a row? I think there's a chance that you can. We'll get out of here on this one for $9.99 from Zach Shandell, who says, it's frustrating to me that the program thought that this passing game was actually viable / acceptable for the season. National champs should be able to get a QB in the portal. What does this say about NIL? And this is kind of a playing the hits question, something that I feel like we've talked about a ton over these last several months. I'm not going to make excuses for them. When you evaluate the talent that you have, I find it hard to believe that you couldn't find something that was an upgrade over what they have. I mean, you've got Curtis Rourke at Indiana, who was at Ohio last year. You've got a guy, Jordan McLeod, who's at James Madison, who's was at Texas or is at Texas State now, playing well. There were guys to be had out there. They acted with a lot of conviction in what they had, and now it's going to kind of define this season, and by extension, kind of define who these guys are as coaches in the short and potentially long term.
Yeah, I think some of it does speak to NIL, but if you make somebody an offer they can't refuse. But I think, and part of it they said too, they didn't want to upset the chemistry in the room. A lot of guys on this team that love Alex Orji. They love their other teammates as well. I think they thought Jack Tuttle was going to be healthy after he got fixed up, and he threw the ball extremely well in the summer. People didn't want to hear it, and they didn't want to believe us, right? But I think that they were going to go with Jack Tuttle. In fact, we interviewed and talked to a kid this summer. All three of us were there, who said that they thought that the plan was Jack Tuttle with some Alex Orji sprinkled in, and clearly that wasn't going to happen when he got injured again. So, but I said, even then, I said, this is really going to be their downfall this year. I felt like it, and I prayed I was wrong. I said this on the message board. I said, I pray I'm wrong the week before the game during a chat, but I thought they should have gone to the portal. I said it in the spring. I said it 3 days before the first game, and here we are.
Yeah, it just so much happened to lead to this, right? In December, you didn't know what JJ McCarthy's decision was going to be. Like you mentioned, Curtis Rourke, Anthony. I mean, he committed to Indiana on December 14th. Michigan was, signing their class. I think the next day was signing day, or was it the next week this past year? And then they were getting ready to make a run at a national championship, and had potentially a senior coming back who had led them to a couple straight Big Ten championships. And then that's one staff. Then the next staff is now the one that decided in the spring not to get somebody. And I agree with you, Chris. Okay, Jack Tuttle's getting a little healthier. He got whatever issue he had, coming out of the UNLV game last year, cleaned up surgery-wise. Okay, he should be better for the summer and the fall. And, because you didn't know until January when he got cleared, he was even going to get his 7th year. So much happened to lead to this. So yeah, it's kind of revisiting at this point. Right now it's what can you do to win the next game, to get the 3 technique blocked and go from there.
And I'll just address this one real quick from Slippin' Jimmy, who's been in a tizzy in the comments the entire show. Says, good luck keeping Carter Smith and Brady Hart. Why the F would any QB want to play here? Because if you're good, you're going to play, because you're better than what they have right now. So I'm not worried about that at all. If anything, it probably solidifies those guys wanting to come here, if we're being completely honest. That's going to be our show tonight. Thank you guys for stepping on in. Another great hour of discussion here. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ring the bell down below to get you alerts straight to your phone when we go live, when we post other videos. Use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our website for a single $1. It's the best deal in America per Clayton Safey. And for Clayton Safey, Chris Ballas, our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Thank you guys for watching so much. We'll talk to you again Thursday when we preview Saturday's game and the battle for the Little Brown Jug.